Jan.
And I'm Tracy. And since we retired in 2022, we've been blessed to travel. And honestly, it feels like it's been nonstop.
Yeah, just last year we went on 9 cruises, and this year we're actually already working on 10.
And for 2026, we already have 9 cruises on the books, and that doesn't even count our land vacations.
So we've learned that knowing when to cruise might be just as important as which cruise line you actually choose. This is because the time of year is going to make a big difference in the weather, the crowds, and especially the price. And we're going to be the first to admit we don't always get this right ourselves. Even with all of our planning, we've had cruises where the weather didn't cooperate or we missed something important that just because we didn't go at the right time. It's not always easy, and it's definitely not an exact science.
And to be honest, cost is often the deciding factor for us. Sometimes we let the price guide our choice more than the weather or the crowds, especially if it's a really, really good deal. But realize cruise fares can swing a lot depending on the time of year you go. And when everyone's trying to go to the same region at the same time, those prices jump up fast.
However, if you sail during a low demand window, you can really a lot of times snag a really great deal, but you have to keep in mind that there's usually a reason why fewer people are booking them.
And oftentimes, honestly, it's the weather. It's the hurricane season, it's monsoons, or just seasonal storms can cause ports or entire cruises to get canceled.
And even if your sailing isn't canceled, nothing ruins a dream trip through the tropics like 5 straight days of rain.
And then there are those school holidays. We used to take our kids on cruises, and we would look for the times when the kids were out of school, such as Thanksgiving break right after Christmas, spring break, or summer break.
Of course, this means that everyone else with kids is cruising at the same time, so expect full ships with kids, and higher fares.
And now that our kids are all grown up and out of the house, we still try to plan our cruises around the school calendar, although this time we're trying to cruise when the kids are in school so we can have now a quieter, more kid-free experience, and those often come with cheaper fares.
Yeah, but beyond weather and crowds, some destinations are very specific for the timing, for the best experiences, like when to go see whales, catch the northern lights, or be there for a local festival.
So in this video, we're going to walk you through the 9 cruise destinations from the least visited to the most popular and share the best months to cruise to each.
We're going to start with Antarctica, which is one of the most remote, but also one of the most extraordinary cruise destinations in the world. Cruises here generally start to run between November and March, and the best time we believe is to go in late December through February when the wildlife is active and the weather is most favorable. However, this really actually depends upon what do you want out of your own Antarctica experience. If you want lots of snow and ice, you want that pristine Antarctic experience, you want to book earlier in the season. But if you want more wildlife, you want to book later. Now, we went on our Antarctica cruise in early February, and it was absolutely unforgettable. We saw whales throughout the cruise, especially in the Lemaire Channel, also known as a Kodak Gap. And the penguin chicks had just hit their rebellious teenage phase. They're adorable, they're endlessly entertaining, and they're actually very loud. However, we warn you that if you are visiting later in the season, like when we did when the penguins had been in their rookeries longer, the smell of guano, and let's be honest, that's just a polite way of saying penguin poop, is going to be much more pungent. They stink. But the weather was really mild considering it is Antarctica. Usually no lower than mid or the high 30s. We even had the opportunity to camp overnight on the continent under a sky full of stars. But, while it's expensive and logistically complex, the sheer beauty, the silence, and the wildlife encounters makes it well worth its effort and its price. This is why this is not your typical cruise, and which is why it is also very, very special.
And now next up is Australia and New Zealand, which offers a rich mix of cosmopolitan ports, rugged coastlines, and unique wildlife. The peak cruising season is from December to March, which is summer in the southern hemisphere. You'll get long, warm days, warm weather, and fewer rough seas. Now, we cruised both countries in the month of February during our world cruise, and then another cruise we sailed in December along the western and southern coast of Australia, and both of them had gorgeous weather both times. Now, that said, you'll want to avoid the June to August winter windows, especially in the southern itineraries when the conditions are cooler and rougher. Cruising here is growing in popularity, and while it requires longer flights for many travelers, it will reward you with dramatic scenery and culturally rich ports.
All right, so let's move to South America, and the region of South America which most cruisers visit is what is known as the Southern Cone region. This is the area, southern portion of Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. This region offers everything from bustling cities to the rugged Patagonian wilderness. The best time for this region is to to cruise, especially around the Cape Horn or Patagonia, is December through March during what is known as the Southern Hemisphere summer, when temperatures are warmer, days are longer, and the seas are calmer. Now, alternatively, we would say avoid May to August unless you want to go ski. This is their winter. This is when it's cold and the sea conditions are going to be challenging. Now, we cruised this region last November, visiting Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile. And while it was cool, it was a perfect time to see the Southern Cone with beautiful landscapes, penguins along the beaches, and some of the cleanest air we've ever breathed.
Now let's talk about Asia, a huge and diverse region that includes everything from ancient temples to ultra-modern cities. The ideal cruising window is November through March, when the temperatures are comfortable and the rainfall is lower across much of Southeast and East Asia. June to September brings heavy monsoon rains and typhoons to places like Japan, Korea, and the Philippines, so it's best to avoid that stretch unless you're inland and between ports. Now, we visited Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and Hong Kong in March and April during our world cruise. And I'll tell you, it was the highlight of our experience. And now what surprised us most was the incredible smoothness of the seas. Some of these are the calmest waters we've experienced anywhere in the world.
Now, next up is Northern Europe and the Baltics. This includes bucket list stops like Tallinn, Stockholm, and the Norwegian fjords. The prime season for this region is May through August, although there is a shoulder season of May and September. However, May tends to be cooler, and September brings more rain and cooler temps, especially the farther north you go. That said, we cruised the region on a back-to-back cruise on the MSC Preciosa, where we did the Baltics, we did the Norwegian all the way up, Norwegian fjords all the way up to Nordkapp, which is the northern portion of Norway, between mid-August and early September. And the crew actually told us, they kept on raving that it was actually the best weather they had all season. So there are exceptions to everything we're saying. However, if you're into scenery, folklore, and that old Europe feel, this region is incredibly rewarding, but it books fast and can be pricier than many of the other warmer destinations we're talking about.
Now on to Alaska, the only destination on this list that we haven't cruised to yet, but believe me, it is on our radar. The cruising season here runs from May through September, with June through early August generally considered the best for warm weather, whale watching, and active wildlife. May and September are also the shoulder months, often with better pricing and fewer crowds, but you run into the greater risk of rain and cooler temperatures. Now, if you're looking for bucket list natural experiences, glaciers calving, salmon spawning, bears fishing, Alaska delivers all of it and then some. We've researched this one thoroughly, and we just cannot wait to go.
Now let's talk about Transatlantic Cruises, which might sound niche, but they're really some of our favorite types of cruises. We've done 3 of them so far, not counting our January crossing during the World Cruise, and we have 2 more already in the books. The main season for these is spring or fall, is either April to May heading east or October to November heading west. Now, cruise lines are actually who are going to determine the schedule because they are repositioning voyages, but the big decision for travelers like you is which direction to sail. Now, there is some research that suggests that eastbound crossings, that's going from the United States to Europe, that they're actually easier on the body to be able to manage, and they also have smoother seas. But we personally prefer sailing west to east, or from Europe to the United States, because you gain an hour every day or two, and quite frankly, this just allows us to sleep in without feeling guilty. So if you enjoy sea days, reading, relaxing, and shipboard life without a packed itinerary, transatlantics are unbeatable, especially for the value.
Now the Mediterranean, our personal happy place. We've taken multiple cruises here, and we always aim for the shoulder seasons, May, June, September, and October. And these months offer better weather, fewer crowds, and slightly lower prices than the peak summer months. That said, fewer crowds does not mean no crowds anymore. Places like Venice and Florence can still be packed even in the off-season. I would say try to avoid July and August if you can. It's hot, it's expensive, and it is packed with tourists. Still, with its deep history, world-class cuisine, and port-intensive itineraries, the Med never gets old for us. It is one of the places we keep coming back to over and over again.
And finally, we come to the Caribbean. This is the most popular cruise destination in the world, and probably the one we've cruised the most. The best time to cruise the Caribbean is going to be between December and April, when the weather is dry, the seas are calmer, and the hurricanes aren't a concern. We almost always take a Caribbean cruise in February, especially sailing out of our home port in Galveston. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the Western Caribbean ports, such as Cozumel, Belize, and Grand Cayman, can be a bit cooler. But even in January and February, once you reach the Eastern and Southern Caribbean, Caribbean is reliably warm. But early in the trip, especially out of ports such as Galveston, you might want to have a light jacket in the mornings. And yes, we've dared the cruise gods with September and October sailings right into the heart of the hurricane season. In fact, we're getting ready to do that in a few weeks here. It is a gamble, but if you're flexible and willing to adjust, the lower fares and smaller crowds can make it well worth it, as long as you don't have a canceled cruise or a favorite port call. For us, the Caribbean is a reliable escape for sunshine, beaches, and easy access.
So now that we've walked you through all 9 regions, we want to give you a quick month-by-month summary to help you match your travel window with the best cruise destination.
Think of it as kind of a cheat sheet, just a general guide. Weather and pricing is going to vary from year to year, but this should be able to help you narrow things down.
Beginning of the year, January and February are great for escaping winter with cruises to the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, South America, and Antarctica.
March and April bring in Japan's cherry blossoms, the start of the Mediterranean season, and this is when you have your eastbound transatlantic crossings.
Now, from May to August, it's prime time for Alaska, Northern Europe, and the Mediterranean, but expect bigger crowds and higher prices.
Into September, October, they are sweet spots for shoulder season travel. This is a great time to be able to get great deals in the Mediterranean, go to the South America, or this is when you have your transatlantics going westbound.
Then we close out the year in November and December with sailings to the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, Australia, and back to Antarctica.
Of course, there's always exceptions, but that gives you a great, solid starting point to be able to help get your cruise to right.
And if you're like us, you'll probably find that the best time to cruise is when you can go cruising.
Speaking of cruising, check out how stunning Antarctica is in early February with this video. And as always, keep on traveling.